Dhamma greetings. My name is Rahula. I'm a student of Bhikkhu Candana, and I just wanted to share a thank you before watching, and just to let you know that Bhikkhu Candana is a wandering monk, and he basically depends totally on donations for food, shelter, transport, and medicine. So if you find this video beneficial and it's fruitful in your life, a dana or donation would be greatly, greatly appreciated. So enjoy.
A few questions that came up. One having to do with selfishness, and the other one having to do with, I think it's a wonderful question, whether a person needs to be in a state of complete mental tranquility in order for them to be meditating. The human condition always, for some reason, likes to resort to a very quick response, a yes and no, which indicates the presence of wrong view. Many things in life, in fact, require us to hold a bigger, create a bigger space for possibilities, rather than just being so narrow in our interpretation of something or adherence to something. This is where opinions come in, which modern day human beings are very much plagued by. I see it this way, therefore this is something that is worth attaching myself to, living my life according to. And if I see that you do not live according to that principle or position in your life, then there's something wrong with you. Typically, what follows after that is, I'm going to change you. I'm going to change you. I'm going to at least try. But why? Why does it bother you if my opinions or your opinions or position in life is different than mine? Again, this takes us back to the sense of fake safety that we have by holding on to this very, very narrow point of view. Energy expenditure has everything to do with this. How much we're willing to spend the time, the energy, yes, but the possibility for us to sit there with something and asking ourselves the question as to whether this is truly coherent with the natural flow of life. This opinion that I've come to grasp after some experiences I've had in life, conclusions I've made. Perhaps it's wrong. Oh, it's a big taboo. It requires tremendous courage. Most of us are not willing to do that. Even asking the question is out of the question. Even pausing for a millisecond and thinking, perhaps my conclusions about this person, this point of view, as I was saying initially, maybe it's not well based on intelligent conclusion, on truthful, unbiased attitude. Maybe I came to this conclusion emotionally based, while being emotionally driven. Sensationalistic is another word that comes to mind to describe this. Now, I'm using many words to refer to this very emotionally driven society that we live in. And for that reason, I can see a connection between the two questions. We are taught from an early age that being selfish is bad. And we live in a society, especially in a Western society, that looks down upon being selfish. Unfortunately, it's just one word, selfish. It has so many nuances. It does not bring to the table the contextual elements that are so important to be considered. The many factors that have to be surveyed first, that have to be acknowledged, and we need to have an understanding of before we say, don't be selfish. Well, what do you mean by don't be selfish? A student recently sent me a clip of a famous um, um, lady who is talking about, she was in fact the biggest proponent in recent history, in the West at least, of law of attraction. So not my student, but the video of the clip of the person. So she's speaking beautifully about how important it is to change our understanding of selfishness. Unfortunately, the crowd that she's addressing are extremely biased towards the word selfish. And their understanding of the word selfishness, or the feeling of selfishness, the experience of selfishness, unfortunately is not well based, because they are already biased in their approach. So if the person is already in their understanding biased, wanting to always, engaging in one-upmanship, as they say, trying to prove herself, trying to prove oneself, and only see oneself as, well, I'm going to make it in spite of you, and not look at the enormous contributions that the other person or society has made, then it's a completely flawed way of understanding selfishness, as they're hearing this famous person from the stage talking to them. So the understanding will be flawed because there is no wisdom. There is no consideration of other factors. So we have to be careful when discussing, is it okay to be selfish, basically, that question. Well, it depends. That's why it's not a yes and no, or yes or no answer. Depends. Depends on what you mean by selfish. You mean by selfish, the person. Because your understanding of selfishness might already be sullied, stained by misconceptions. Many people don't know or don't consider that Lord Buddha, in order for him to become the Buddha, was engaging in a very selfish act. He was a very selfish person. When I look at the statue or the image of Lord Buddha sitting in meditation, that's a perfect example of selfishness. Now, what kind of selfishness? That's the question. So here, this is a different understanding and approach to what we mean by selfishness in this context. Again, context matters. Because in order for you to love someone, In order for you to be giving to someone, genuinely giving, in order for you to care about someone, genuinely, you need to have all those things towards yourself. After all, it's you. You are the center of the universe. In that sense, the way I am understanding, the way I'm approaching it, I hope you are getting what I'm trying to say. It's you can only see the world from your own lens. You can only stand on your 2 feet. See the world through your eyes. Smell the world through your own nose. So of course you have to start from this presence of yours, from this life. And if it's already damaged, if you already have a very severe, unforgiving attitude towards yourself, then to hear the word selfish might come to you as a very rough, might come to you as a very unwholesome thing to now be engaged in. Because already the image or the arena was uneven. It was not healthy. Because you don't have a healthy relationship with yourself. So when I say Lord Buddha is a perfect example of selfishness, he first saw in his life and the people he loved around him that none of them were going to be living forever in that state of happiness, in that state of youthfulness, including himself. He saw that this newborn child of his, Rahula, was going to suffer. He's going to fall and break his leg or not be able to sleep. As a loving father, he realized he won't be able to save his son from death even. He wasn't able to save his own father, who's older than him, of course. He wasn't going to be able to save his parents. His mother, his natural biological mother, Queen Mahamaya, she had died 7 days after giving birth to him, after all. So he wasn't able to save her. The person who gave him birth had died. And his father, whose eyes he was looking at when he decided to leave and to work on his understanding as to how to break this linkage of continued existences. He saw that he couldn't save him either. And that gave him tremendous pain. Whose pain? His pain. But here we see a person whose sense of empathy is so vast that the other person's pain and sense of loss and fear. Ask anyone in your life whether they celebrate death or do they fear it. If they're truly being honest, they will almost majority of them, if not all of them, are going to say, I'm terrified, if they're being honest. Terrified of death. So a person who truly loves oneself will see the magnitude of what that fear does to the heart, to the mind. A truly selfish person can really be able to care for another. Only a truly selfish person. Again, the way I'm using selfishness, the way I'm presenting it, is completely different than what we see advertised in propaganda and pop psychology books and all these advertisements and movies separating men from women. You did this or you didn't do this enough. Families have now been completely torn. There is no appreciation. All because there's a wrong education of society in regards to being selfish. So true selfishness brings life, not just to one person. True selfishness brings joy, not just to one person, but to everyone. That doesn't mean that when you become joyful, you now have to take buckets of that and go and force it upon others. No. By you being joyful, you also become calm. You also become contented with yourself. So at the very least, you don't go around imposing your will, your interpretations, your opinions upon others. What a gift that is, when you don't butt into other people's lives, into their lives, into wanting to change. What a relief. When family members or friends talk over the phone or communicate, converse, it seems like everyone is trying to convince the other person to change their opinion, right? That's how I began addressing these questions. So we need to appreciate selfishness, but that only comes in the presence of, in the understanding of wisdom. So is it narrow-minded? Is it of a narrow interpretation? Or is it all-encompassing? This is when selfishness becomes timeless. When what you're giving the other person, with your silence, with your smile, with your acceptance, with your tolerance, with your generosity, and the list goes on and on. When you're doing those things, making yourself fully available, does not have any hidden agendas. And that is a blessing. Lord Buddha did not have any agendas. And by the way, when he did attain liberation from suffering, by ending the cycles of samsara for himself, by understanding the mechanism, he understood there's this thing called nature, existence has this quality to it, undeniable characteristic that will always remain. Anicca, he called it. Impermanence. Second was what? Suffering. Non-substantiality of constantly having whatever we like to be there constantly, which is suffering. The joy that you thought you were going to have if you possessed this, if you gained that thing, if you finally achieved that thing, yeah, you're there, you achieved it, what happens? Vacuous. It's painful to realize, oh, now I have to, the mind will never run out of things to come up with. Don't worry, we will, I'll give you something else to run after. But a wise person will stop and says, okay, what happens after that is achieved? So it takes a wise person to be honest and say, until when? And then the third one, which is the non-self. This is where many people get it wrong. The whole idea of non-self, or I like to call it the non-substantiality of an independent selfhood within oneself, within your mind. Like this, there is something in me that is timeless, that is never changing, that is unconditional. Well, no, everything is conditional, so long as it's not the liberation from suffering, nibbana. Everything is conditional. The person you're looking at in your relationship, if you don't do the things that they expect from you, something happens. Or if you do something that they don't want to happen, something happens. And the relationship loses its momentum. It breaks apart. So, It's all conditional in that sense. Unfortunately, the relationships that people have, father, daughter, mother, son, father, mother, siblings, boss, employee. Unfortunately, many people have the wrong understanding of selfishness. There isn't that wider scope in accepting and considering different contexts and narratives. Why? Again, we come back to that narrow view of how I want things to be. Because the person has not spent the time to understand how you see the world. And no, you don't have to go and learn how to see the world from every person's point of view. No. Living in a healthy, selfish way allows you automatically, because it means that your walls that separate you from others are not thick like concrete, but they're very transparent. They protect you. They're walls. The walls have to be there. Otherwise, you're going to have some psychological problems. Okay? But you need to have those walls to protect you. Those walls could be the way you live a virtuous life when others around you don't. So your selfishness at that moment will say, thank you, you're there, I'm here. You're refusing to live according to my principles, that's fine, but I'm going to keep you over there. Because this gives me joy, fulfillment. I'm not going to come outside of those walls and try to convince you to change, beat you into submission, basically. You see that one is healthy, the earlier one, and this is an unhealthy way of living a selfish, or having a position towards selfishness. Now, the second question was about can a person be meditating? Would they be meditating if the mind is not tranquil? Everyone has to start from somewhere. And I know meditators ask this kind of question, but it's a wonderful question because it sheds light on a condition, a situation that happens with meditators often. And when we are starting from anywhere, I mean, everybody is going to come in from a different level of experience. And even experience does not guarantee that the person, the meditator, will start from there, from that launching pad every time. Because life happens. Life is happening. So the key thing to remember, the short and sweet version of the answer is, do I have sati first and foremost? Sati and sampajanya. Sati means mindfulness. Sampajanya means full awareness of your body. You understand how your body is moving, where you are sitting, how you're sitting. So at least if you could do that, already you are, even if, because the mind is going to be in a tumultuous state sometimes. That is not a carte blanche or a permission for you to drop sati. This is what happens with many meditators, because they think that if I am not tranquil, then I'm not meditating. That is completely erroneous. Now, as the person develops sati and sampajanya, the tumultuous states will not last for very long. The heart rate will not be racing so much. In other words, restlessness and agitation will slowly decrease. And it becomes more leveled. And depending on the person's experience with meditation, they might just drop into a state of tranquility immediately. But initially, when they started, it looked like it was chaos. Sati and Sampajanya came in to the rescue. In fact, they were always there. That is the ideal practice, because your mind is going to fluctuate. So please don't look at that state of equanimity or tranquility as the gauge. Oh yes, so it's a yes or no. Oh, I'm not meditating. Oh, I am meditating. Why? Because I am in this blissed out state. No, that's not necessarily meditation. So sati is number one. Even in the midst of chaos. Try traveling, going through airports. When people are cutting the queue or the line, even though you've been standing there for about 7 hours, waiting, delays, this and that, and people's level of tolerance and patience and forbearance is not there. Things aren't going according to plan. You have so many things riding on this. So people start pushing and pushing and pushing, dropping and dropping and dropping their level of virtue. So it's very natural for your attention to go to the other person, the situations. What that means is you relinquish sati. That's why Lord Buddha gave the satipatthana, which are the 4 establishments of mindfulness. First, big one is the body. Use the breath. It's always with you, wherever you go. Otherwise, your eyes are pulling you to the other person over there who's doing something very unfair. The world is always pulling your attention away from you. That's why we are leaking. Leaking. Because we're not looking inside. At that moment, it's a great opportunity for you to practice sati, such as, is my breath now no longer quiet as it was 5 minutes ago? If I'm being honest, I'm going to say yes. Why though? What happened? Because I saw this woman cut the line, or this person doing this, or this person is being rude. Well, how could they do that? I'm pulled in. I'm into that scene. In fact, I'm pulled out, away from sati. So now the mind is going to be like this. So if sati is there, the sati is not going to be looking outside. It's going to turn the camera on and look at this. That is meditation already. Even though the mind is not tranquil, for all intents and purposes. Tranquility will not teach you much if you become a worshipper of tranquility and equanimity and think, oh yes, that's the state of, that's why we meditate. No, you meditate for wisdom to be gained, understanding to be had. Otherwise, you can ask anybody who's been on, in coma or something, or just been sedated, and call them a Buddha, Rubbish. Total nonsense. Meditation has everything to do with your life, not to turn you into some type of a vegetable. You're alert, you're aware. But you have to start from wherever the mind is, whatever the heart is engaged in, up and down, up and down. So turn your gaze to that, not to whatever's happening around you, or whatever was said to you yesterday. I can't believe she said those things to me. So mean and cold-hearted. How could you say that? After all that, where am I? I'm over there. Not in the moment. Sati will say, excuse me, there's so much noise. Sometimes it's very difficult to pay attention to sati and say, oh, hold on, whose voice is that? Sati. Okay, what do I need to do? The breath. Okay, I'm coming to the breath. Or how your body is situated. Oh, look at that. Oh, I feel my temperature. Oh, the heart rate. Whoa, what? Already, because you shifted your awareness, this is called yoniso manasikara. This is called bringing the wise attention. Literally, it means doing in the mind, the Pali transliteration. But what am I doing? I am changing focus. I am bringing the focus back to what matters the most, not what matters outside, what happened yesterday or over there, somebody's doing something that I don't agree with. No, your response, this is where they both connect, the two questions. I bring it to the selfish presence of the body. You have no other option. You cannot work through someone else. You cannot stand on another person's legs and call yourself walking. Breathe through someone else's nose and say, I'm breathing. See through someone else's eyes and say, I'm seeing. It's impossible. Similarly, you developed in meditation thanks to you going through these changes in attention and bring it back to the right point of attention. Otherwise, it's ayoniso manasikara, which is wrong, unwise reflection, unwise attention. So the wise attention means there is enough sati, but sati has to be moved. You have to create fervency and desire in wanting to be in a certain direction. Otherwise, your sati will go, oh, what's on the channel? Look, what's on channel 5? What's on the, on the news today or something? What's happening over there? That means this is called chanda. Chanda means desire. Where is my fervency, the interest? Really? That dictates where sati will go. Where sati goes, that's where yoniso manasikara goes. That's your wise attention goes there. So now you're locked on. Now your sati says, I don't care what happens outside. Healthy selfishness, by the way. I want to check what's happening to the heart, the breathing, the heavy breathing. Why? What's happening? Or how does this sensation feel? The heat, as my feet are resting upon each other, or my hands are in a certain place, resting. So all of a sudden you left everything out and you came to where it matters, the attention. You're already meditating. Now your mind might be in chaos, still you feel agitation because your mind goes, yeah, but 7 days ago or 7 years ago when I was sitting in meditation somewhere in the Himalayas or somewhere, I reached that state of calm and tranquility. Oh, it was superb. I was blissed out. How come I'm not there? That was meditation, not this. That's complete nonsense. That's a complete avidya, ignorance. So, no, you don't need to be in a tranquil state in order for you to be in meditation. Now, meditation will lead you, if you're doing it right, to the true meditative practice. And it goes down, down, down. That's why we have the 7 factors of awakening. So we start with sati, we go to dhamma vichaya, which is investigation. That's the thing that says, where am I? Where's my attention gone to? That requires energy. That's why we have virya follow. After virya, we have joy. Spiritual joy, we call it piti. Some people call it rapture. And then from there, inevitably, piti, when it's true piti, this is the highest form of spiritual joy that you can experience as taught by Lord Buddha. And then immediately after that, once the energy dissipates, just like fire, like a bonfire, blazing bonfire, you light it up, eventually it just goes, and then you hit the perfect level, it quiets down, there's no more crazy wild flames all over the place. Now you can do barbecue. Now you can cook something. Because it's not dangerous, it's not fluttering all over. So then there's tranquility of mind, passaddhi. And then you get into deep concentration. Why? Because you have tranquility. Then you get to samadhi. Right? That's the collectedness of mind, which eventually drops into the wholeness, the fullness, the balanced state, wise state of upekkha. So the mind, if you're practicing correctly, it's trying to balance this. That's why 7 factors of awakening are absolutely essential for the attainment of nibbana. You cannot attain Nibbana without having worked with the 7 factors of awakening. We know this through the suttas, through the words of Lord Buddha. So, I hope these help. Brilliant questions, I think. Simple questions, but they are loaded. So I hope it helped. Secure.